The crystal chandeliers above blazed like diamonds on fire, scattering light across the lavish ballroom. Tonight marked the annual ritual where young Min-ho, Seoul's most feared mafia lord, would select a woman. One evening, one trial. If she satisfied him, marriage would follow. Her family would transform from poverty to prosperity overnight. Muna's crimson heels echoed against polished marble, the sound sharp in the tense atmosphere. Her dress hugged every curve, scarlet and strapless, scandalously brief. She kept tugging the hemline downward, her trembling fingers fighting a losing battle with fabric that seemed intent on revealing too much. Dark coils of hair tumbled past her shoulders, framing rich brown skin that glowed under the harsh lighting. Everything about this moment felt wrong. Her stepmother and half-brother had practically dragged her into the vehicle, their demands still echoing through her mind. Tonight you secure him. Tonight you rescue us all. Secure him. As if a man like Young Min-ho, whose very name made grown men lower their voices, could be captured like some carnival prize. Muna's pulse hammered as she surveyed the ballroom packed with women whose beauty seemed manufactured to perfection. Designer gowns, expensive fragrances, calculated smiles designed to entice. She almost laughed. They were already measuring each other with barely concealed hostility, painted lips twisted in polite contempt. And here she stood, inexperienced and unwilling, packaged like temptation itself. Every instinct screamed at her to flee. But the memory of her stepmother's iron grip and the cutting words at their doorstep anchored her feet. You will not humiliate me tonight, Muna. That man represents our only salvation. Do not disappoint me. The whispers died when the announcer moved to the ballroom center, his voice resonating through the space. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we witness the king's selection. As custom dictates, each lady will present herself before him. The chosen one will receive his favor, and her family will never face hardship again. A wave of hunger and desperation rippled through the assembled women. Muna's stomach twisted. She knew the whispers. Young Min-ho, Seoul's mafia sovereign, selected a woman annually to share his bed, but had never approved of anyone. Tonight, though, if she pleased him, if she survived him, she became his wife. Not through love but through decree. Property, wealth, status, all purchased with a night of surrender. Her fists clenched tight. This isn't who I am. This isn't the future I dreamed of. Yet here she remained. Min-ho stood in the shadows near the entrance, his posture relaxed, hands clasped behind his back, sharp eyes analyzing the gathering long before his official arrival was announced. Tonight the Mafia King would choose, and the women had arrived ready to be chosen. Then his gaze found her. She entered almost reluctantly, a flame of crimson in a sea of calculated elegance. Her dress, brief, glittering, strapless, caught the light like scattered rubies conforming to her shape. Red stilettos, impractically tall, clicked softly on marble as she made her way inside. Her skin, deep and warm, set her apart from the powder-pale faces filling the hall. She carried her head high despite everything. Min-ho's eyes narrowed. She was struggling not to stumble, struggling not to shrink, struggling not to reveal the anxiety in her bearing. He could read it all. Every rigid adjustment of her posture, every time she pulled at that provocative dress. Someone had forced her here. The announcer launched into his theatrics, explaining the evening's procedure, the regulations, the ceremony. Min-ho remained where he was, content to observe the women posture and scheme. They had no idea he was already present. That was how he preferred it. The hall dimmed slightly and the announcer's voice rose. Ladies and gentlemen, Seoul's Don Young Min-ho will now join us. The double doors swung open and silence descended. Muna turned and her breath stopped. He entered tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a flawlessly tailored black suit that whispered wealth with every seam. 32 years old. His presence commanded without effort. His jawline could cut glass. His lips held secrets. His eyes, God, his eyes. Dark, penetrating. Young Min-ho. His presence consumed the oxygen in the hall. Women straightened. Men averted their gazes. The Mafia King had arrived. He wasn't the wrinkled, lecherous old man she had imagined. No, he was devastatingly handsome. The kind of man artists dreamed of and sinners prayed about. The kind of man who destroyed women with a look. The women straightened instantly, smiles blooming. He didn't even acknowledge them. He continued toward the golden throne at the hall's head and sat. Silence deepened. The ritual began. One by one, the women stepped forward, turning, posing, smiling with lips that didn't reach their eyes. Some bowed lower than necessary, their jewelry catching light like fishing lures. Others attempted to look indifferent, but his gaze drifted often, almost involuntarily, to the line's end where the girl in red stood. Muna's heart pounded harder with every name called. When her turn approached, another woman, tall, blonde, draped in wealth that sparkled from her ears to her wrists, moved ahead of her, elbowing subtly, claiming the spotlight as if it belonged to her by birthright. The announcer fumbled the names, corrected himself, and finally called out, "Muna." Her head jerked up. Startled, she moved forward on uncertain heels. Her walk careful, deliberate. She was attempting to mimic the grace of the others, but it was obvious her body rebelled against the performance. Minho's eyes didn't leave her. She came to a stop before him, the air thick with the weight of 100 watching eyes. Then she looked at him and time stopped. Close, Minho was worse. Too handsome, too unnaturally composed. His gaze pinned her like a predator assessing prey. Those dark eyes didn't move, didn't blink. "Turn," the announcer ordered. She obeyed, tugging at the hem of the scandalous dress as if that would matter. Heat burned her cheeks. It felt as though she stood naked under his gaze. He leaned subtly toward his lieutenant, De Jong, who stood behind his chair. "Who is she?" Minho murmured, not looking away from her. Ding tilted his head slightly. "Muna Okafor. Nigerian father, Korean mother. 22. Her parents both died when she was young. Raised by her father's second wife and stepbrother. The family is buried in debts. Her stepmother borrowed heavily last week. Dress and jewelry are rented. Shoes too, likely through an underground dealer." A faint smirk touched Minho's lips. He knew this game intimately. Families like hers were lured by the promise of wealth. A single night that could reverse their fortunes. One night in his bed, followed by marriage, property, and an inheritance they could never earn in 10 lifetimes. But Muna didn't look like a willing participant. She faced him again, hands clenching and unclenching at her sides. "Well?" the announcer asked. Minho leaned back in his seat, studying her like a puzzle. The others had come to seduce him. This one had come to endure him. The hall fell silent once more, waiting for his verdict. He rose slowly from his seat, the movement drawing every gaze like gravity itself. "There will be no list tonight," Minho said, his tone final. "Send them all away except her." A ripple of outrage passed through the hall. The blonde woman, the one with diamonds dangling from her ears like trophies, stepped forward. "This is outrageous. She doesn't even belong here." "Enough," Minho cut in without raising his voice. His gaze flicked toward the blonde, and the fire in her tone died instantly. Muna froze, her fingers tightening on her hem, her heart visibly pounding against the fragile fabric of that dress. He dismissed the rest with a flick of his hand. One by one they departed, muttering and seething. Soon the hall was empty except for him, his guards, and the girl in red. The chamber had been prepared long before the women arrived for the night's ritual. Incense burned faintly from the far corner, the fragrance low and dark, mingling with the sharp chill of the night air. The sheets were deep charcoal, expensive silk from Italy, smooth as smoke against skin. On the table rested a single glass of whiskey, half empty, amber catching the golden lamplight. Minho lay across the bed, one arm behind his head, the other resting loosely on his chest. His shirt was unbuttoned at the throat, the white fabric stark against his skin. His black trousers still in place, shoes discarded by the side. His eyes were closed, but his mind was awake, calculating, observing through sound, through the rhythm of footsteps beyond the door. Then the door creaked open. Muna stepped in. Her hair had been brushed. Her skin gleamed faintly from the oils they had used on her. Her lips glossed and trembling. The dress, the infamous short strapless red, was gone. In its place, A robe of thin silk clung to her body like a whisper, revealing just enough to betray the intention of the night. She hesitated at the threshold, fingers curling in the folds of the robe. The latch clicked shut behind her. He didn't open his eyes yet. He listened to the soft shuffle of her feet, the nervous drag of breath as she stepped further inside. He could almost hear her heart hammering. Finally he spoke. "Tell me why you're here." She flinched at the suddenness of his words, clutching the silk tighter against her chest. She moved, each step deliberate as though her own body might betray her. When she reached the bed, her fingers fumbled at the buttons of his shirt. He didn't stop her. Not yet. The first button slipped open, then the second. Her hands trembling like a thief caught mid-act. She had never done this before. He could see it in the awkwardness of her movements, the way her breath caught with each touch. She was thinking of what the others told her. Please him tonight. Secure your family's future. But that wasn't what he wanted. Not yet. Her hands moved to the next button. And that's when he caught her wrist. Gently but firmly. She froze. His eyes opened fully now, dark and sharp. Slowly, he pulled her closer until her knees touched the edge of the bed. She gasped as his hand guided her until her palms pressed against his chest. His heartbeat steady, unbothered, as though he already owned the moment. "Look at me," he said. She did. Close, her face was a storm. Fear, determination, shame. Her lashes were long, her lips soft and parted as if waiting for a command. He let his gaze drop to those lips. "You've never touched a man like this before," he murmured. She blinked, startled. "I can tell," he continued, his voice a low thread between them. "Your pulse is too fast, your hands too hesitant, and yet here you are trying to seduce the devil." She looked away, shame flooding her face. And then in one sudden deliberate movement, he caught her wrist and pulled her down. She fell softly against the bed, the world spinning for a heartbeat. And before she could gather her breath, he was above her. His voice was a low whisper near her ear. "You want to know how it's done?" She tensed, her breath hitching. "I'll show you," he murmured. His hand slid to her waist, his body warm against hers. Then his lips brushed the side of her neck, a single slow burning touch. Her whole body stiffened, every nerve screaming with unfamiliar heat. But then he stopped. "You should know," he said. "I do not take what is forced upon me. I take what offers itself willingly." He pulled away, the weight of him lifting as suddenly as it had descended. She opened her eyes in confusion, her breath still ragged, her pulse a wild creature trapped in her throat. "What?" she started, but the door was already opening. Without a word, Minho stepped out, leaving only the echo of his presence behind. The room felt colder instantly. She sat there, stunned, the silk robe twisted at her knees. What just happened? Had she displeased him already? Had her inexperience been too obvious? Her stepmother had told her one thing clearly: please him no matter the cost. She curled onto the bed, pulling her knees to her chest, the silk sheets smelling faintly of him, of something dangerous and untouchable. Shame settled like a stone in her stomach. She thought of the borrowed clothes, the painted face, the money her stepmother had scraped and begged for. Debts now resting on her shoulders like a noose. Sleep claimed her eventually, restless and cold. The morning was gray. He was gone. No word, no glance, no presence of the feared Mafia king who had toyed with her soul the night before. She didn't ask where he went. Why would she? She already knew what that silence meant. She was not enough. And so she left. Her stepmother's rage was waiting like a storm at the doorstep. The moment Muna stepped inside, the woman's voice sliced the air. "You useless child. After everything I borrowed, everything I sacrificed, and you come back empty-handed." Muna flinched as the older woman advanced. "They chose you," her stepmother hissed. "Do you know how many girls would kill for that chance? And you wasted it. Do you want me to rot in debt because of your stupidity?" Muna bit her lip until it bled. "Tried. I did everything I was told. Everything." The woman's laugh was sharp as glass. "Since the day your parents died, I have fed you, clothed you, kept you under this roof, and what do I get? Shame. Ruin. You are nothing but a curse. The words hit harder than a slap. Muna's voice cracked as she whispered, "I've worked for this family every day of my life. Gave up school. I washed and sold at the market. I starved so your son could eat. And still it's never enough for you." Her stepmother's eyes flared. "You dare talk back to me?" Her hand rose, ready to strike. But then the door opened. A cold, commanding voice cut through the chaos. "Enough." The room froze. Minho stepped inside, flanked by two men in black. His presence filled the small house like a storm entering a cage. Quiet, dangerous, absolute. Muna's breath caught in her throat. What was he doing here? The stepmother stumbled into a curtsy, her tone shifting like a snake shedding skin. "Oh, sir. Sir Young, we didn't know you were." He didn't look at her. His eyes were fixed on Muna. "Came," he said simply, "to claim what is mine." A stunned silence followed. "You're what?" The stepmother stammered. "My wife." Muna's world tilted. He stepped forward, his shadow falling over them both. "And you," he said, his voice cold as steel, "will not speak to her like that again. Not in my presence. Not ever." The stepmother's mouth opened, then closed, her knees already hitting the ground. "I was angry. Forgive me, sir. I didn't mean. I was prepared to offer your family everything I promised last night." He interrupted, his gaze now like a blade on her. "But now that I see what kind of woman you are, a vulture feeding on her husband's grave, I will give you nothing." The woman's face went pale. "No, no, please. The debts, they are heavy. I only wanted. You only wanted to sell her for your survival," he said flatly. Minho turned to Muna at last. His voice lower now, but no less commanding. "Pack your things. You're leaving with me." The stepmother's voice thick with crocodile tears. Her hands clutched at the hem of Minho's coat like a beggar grasping the hem of a priest. "Please, sir, don't take everything away. I was angry. I didn't mean the words I said." Minho's gaze never softened. He stood there, hands folded behind his back, the very picture of a man used to deciding fates with a single word. Muna stood frozen a few steps away, her heart still pounding from the chaos. That morning before all this, he had made his decision to come here, to meet her family and to marry her. He didn't know why she haunted him after last night, why her trembling hands and quiet defiance refused to leave his thoughts. But now, as he listened to the woman's pathetic pleas, his jaw tightened. "I will give you what I promised," he said finally, his voice calm, but only on one condition. The woman raised her tear-streaked face. "Nothing, sir. Nothing. You will cut all ties with her. From this moment forward, Muna will no longer be your concern. Not as a daughter, not as a debt, not as a burden. You will never claim her again." There was no pause, no hesitation. "I agree," the stepmother blurted. Muna's breath caught in her throat. "What? Just like that? No fight? No hesitation?" The woman turned to her with something like disgust, her lips curling. "You are not my daughter. You never were. Your parents left me with their responsibility, and I carried it all these years. It's only right you sacrifice yourself now after everything I've done for you." Muna stared at her, numb. The words pierced like arrows, cold and sharp. Minho's man stepped forward, a leather folder in his hands. Inside was an agreement already prepared. Perhaps this was always going to be the outcome. The woman snatched the pen and signed without a tremor in her wrist. Muna felt something inside her break. She stepped outside with Minho, the cool air hitting her face like a slap. The sun was harsh, yet her skin felt cold. Behind her, the only home she had ever known was fading, and in its place loomed the shadow of a man everyone in town whispered about. The ruthless Mafia king. Her fate now rested in his hands. When they reached his mansion, a pair of maids led her through the hallways to a room larger than the entire front of her stepmother's house. The curtains were velvet, the bed draped in silk, the air scented faintly with jasmine. Muna stood stiffly in the middle, her fingers twisting the hem of her dress. "Here is your wardrobe, miss," one of the maids said. "This is your bathroom, and that bell over there summons us at any time of the day." Muna barely heard a word. Her mind was a whirl of confusion, betrayal, and exhaustion. Then, a girl slightly younger than her stepped forward, smiling brightly. Her hair was tied in a neat bun, her hands folded in front of her apron. "I am Ji-woo," she said, her voice soft but clear. "I've been assigned as your personal maid. Anything you need, food, clothes, a bath, I will see to it immediately." Moona blinked at her, her lips parting. "I just want to be alone." Ji-woo tilted her head. "Are you sure? You've barely eaten, and you must be exhausted." "I said I want to be alone," Moona whispered, her voice breaking. Ji-woo bowed slightly. "At your service, miss." When the last servant left and the door clicked shut, Moona sank onto the bed. The sheets were too soft, too clean, too alien. And then the tears came. Silent, bitter, heavy. All her life she had endured cruelty. But this was different. This was a clean severing. Cut off, sold off, and now trapped in a stranger's home with no way back. She didn't know when her sobs faded into sleep, only that darkness was kinder than the day had been. It was the tug on her shoulder that brought her back. "Miss Moona." She stirred, the room dim with the low light of evening. Ji-woo stood over her, worry etched across her youthful face. "You've slept all through the day. You haven't eaten anything." "I was worried." Moona rubbed her eyes, her voice hoarse. "What time is it?" "Almost dinner, miss." "You need to eat something," Ji-woo said gently, setting the tray on the table beside the bed. "You've slept through the day." Moona sat up slowly, her body heavy as though carrying the weight of her stepmother's words still pressed upon her chest. She picked up the spoon, and despite the knot in her stomach, she forced herself to eat. Each spoonful was tasteless, but it steadied her. When the tray was empty, Ji-woo cleared it with a small smile. "Would you like me to prepare your bath now, miss?" Moona nodded. "Yes, please." Warm water soon filled the marble tub, steam curling in the air like ghostly fingers. Moona untied the borrowed dress, the one her stepmother had gone into debt for, and stepped toward the inviting water, her body aching for even a moment of comfort. Just as her fingers touched the edge of the tub, there was another knock. A different voice this time, deep, cold, and male. "Miss Moona, the boss wants to see you now." Moona froze. Her heart thudded once, twice before it stumbled into a frantic rhythm. "The Mafia king," she whispered. "Yes, in his chamber." Her breath caught. There was no choice. She wrapped a silk robe around her and followed the guard down the grand corridor. Every step echoed like a drumbeat of fate. The door to Minho's chamber opened soundlessly. She stepped inside and stopped. There he was, submerged in a massive bathtub of dark marble. His head tilted back, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. Candlelight flickered against his bare skin, catching the strong lines of his chest and shoulders. Moona's eyes widened. Heat flushed her cheeks. She spun away immediately, her heart in her throat. "Jamie." The command was sharp, low, leaving no room for protest. She turned slightly, her voice trembling. His gaze cut across the steam like a blade. "Did you not hear me? Come here." Her hands tightened around her robe. "He owns you now," a cold voice whispered in her head. "If you want to survive here, you do what he wants." Slowly, her feet carried her forward. The heat of the water hit her even before she slipped in. She created as much distance as the tub would allow, sitting at the far edge, her body tense, her knees drawn slightly toward her chest. As soon as her body touched the water, a soft sigh escaped her lips. Involuntary, traitorous. The warmth seeped into her skin, washing away the chill that had clung to her since that wretched morning. For a brief, fragile moment, she felt something close to relief. Minho set his glass down on the ledge. His eyes never left her. "Move closer." His voice cut through the steam like a blade. She froze. The air thickened, her heart drumming in her chest. For a second, she thought perhaps she had misheard. But his gaze, dark, unwavering, left no room for doubt. "I'm fine here," she whispered. A slow breath escaped his lips, almost a sigh. "Do not make me repeat myself." Something inside her trembled. Her legs moved before her mind could stop them, the warm water sliding around her as she shifted. Her back touched his chest. A shiver ran through her despite the heat. She could feel him there, his steady breath, the quiet strength behind her, the weight of a man who owned entire cities, and yet tonight had chosen her. Only the thin silk of her robe separated them. The air was still heavy with steam, clinging to her skin like a whisper she couldn't shake. Minho's voice cut through it, low and steady. "Remove your robe." She froze, her fingers tightening on the damp fabric. The thin cloth was already betraying her, sticking to her curves, revealing the quick rise and fall of her chest. He hadn't even touched her, yet her body was already answering to the heat to him. Slowly, she raised her hands to the tie. Her heart hammered, not from fear, but from something she refused to name. Then his voice cut in again, quieter this time, but sharper than before. "Well." Her eyes shot to his, startled. "You want to pretend you're ready, but you're not," Minho murmured, stepping closer, his presence almost brushing against her. "And I won't take what you're not ready to give." It wasn't rejection. It was control. And in that moment, it shook her more than if he had touched her. Water dripped from his skin as he rose. He wrapped a towel around his waist with practiced ease, as if nothing that had just happened held any weight for him. Muna wanted to stand, to follow, to retreat. She wasn't sure which, but her legs betrayed her. A tremor ran through her limbs, her knees faltering. Before the weakness could claim her, his arms were there. Strong, sure. She didn't know when he had crossed the space between them, only that suddenly she was in his hold, her head against his chest, her fingers clutching at the damp fabric of his towel. He carried her with unsettling gentleness, each step measured, unhurried, as though her weight meant nothing to him. The world outside the bathroom felt distant, blurred by steam and her own pounding heart. He placed her on the edge of the bed, his bed, and without asking, without a word, he reached for another towel. Muna didn't protest. Couldn't. She just watched him as he pressed the warm fabric against her skin, drying the droplets that clung to her like a second layer of shame. His touch was impersonal yet intimate, careful yet commanding. She averted her gaze, heat creeping to her cheeks. The silence between them pressed heavy, louder than any words could have been. When he was done, he laid her back against the soft sheets and pulled the cover over her. The scent of him lingered on the pillow, clean, sharp, undeniable. For a fleeting second, she wondered if this was what it meant to belong to him. Not through violence, not through force, but through a power far quieter, far more dangerous. Then, without another glance, he reached for a robe, slipped it over his broad shoulders, and left the room. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Muna curled beneath the sheets, her fingers clutching the fabric until her knuckles turned pale. She couldn't believe what had just happened, that she had obeyed, that she had felt something. Heat, confusion, a rush she couldn't explain. He hadn't even touched her, not truly, and yet she had melted under his command. If he had wanted to take her right then, would she have said no? The thought burned her from within. She pulled the sheets closer, burying her face in the pillow that smelled faintly of him. Sleep claimed her before she even realized her eyes had closed. Minho stood in the corridor outside his room, the cool night air brushing against his damp skin. The mansion was quiet now. Guards posted at their stations, the world outside ignorant of the storm that brewed within these walls. He had left her, not because he was disinterested. Far from it. Every second spent in that bathtub with her, the way her breath had hitched, the way her body tensed under his command, had threatened to snap the tight leash he held on himself. She was unlike the others. Most came to him with practiced smiles, painted faces, and the sickly sweet scent of desperation. They wanted his name, his wealth, his power. They offered themselves like bargains at a market, ready to sell their dignity for a taste of his world. For her, Muna, she wasn't trained to please. She wasn't taught how to seduce. She was thrown to him unprepared, untouched, unaware. And yet, her presence stirred something that the others never could. It wasn't just desire. It was something darker, more dangerous. He remembered the way she tensed when his lips brushed her neck, the way her breath trembled when his voice slid into her ear. She wasn't pretending. That fear, that hesitation was real, and that made her genuine. Minho leaned against the cold wall, running a hand through his damp hair. He had vowed long ago never to let his emotions cloud his decisions. Emotions were messy. They got men killed in his world. But tonight he had crossed a line. Not by touching her, by letting her in. He could still see her, small beneath the sheets, lost in a bed too large for her fragile frame. And he had walked away because he wanted her to remember the feeling of being seen and spared. Control was not always taken by force. Sometimes it was given willingly, and she had given him more than she realized. Tomorrow the rest of the world would continue to see him as the ruthless king, the man who ruled with an iron fist and a silent smile. But tonight, for a fleeting moment, he had allowed himself to simply be a man watching a girl who had unknowingly stepped into his den. He would claim her. That much was inevitable, but on his terms. Not the world's, not her stepmother's, not even hers. With a final glance at the closed door behind him, Minho turned and walked down the hall, his footsteps silent on the polished floors. There were plans to be set in motion, debts to erase, ties to cut, enemies to quiet. And in the center of it all, the girl sleeping in his bed. Muna sat by the wide window, her fingers tracing the silk hem of her robe as the warm breeze swept through the curtains. Days had passed without a single glimpse of Minho. His world was one of shadows and silence, missions that no one spoke about, and doors that closed the moment his name was whispered. She hadn't realized how much the quiet weighed on her until now. She missed him. Not his touch, no, they had barely shared that. But his presence. The way he filled the room even when he said nothing. The way her heart raced, confused and restless whenever his dark eyes found hers. Their wedding was only a few days away, and she wondered what would their wedding night feel like. Would he be gentle? Or would he claim her the way the world claimed it was in his nature? Fierce, demanding, unstoppable. Muna curled her toes slightly as Ji-woo gently filed them, humming a soft tune that reminded her of home, of a life before power and deaths and forced choices. Ji-woo, Muna began hesitantly, watching the maid's skilled hands. Yes, my lady, Ji-woo replied, her voice calm but her eyes curious. Muna bit her lip. How do you please a man? I mean truly please him so that he wants only you. Ji-woo blinked, the file pausing in her hand. For a moment, her cheeks flushed pink and a small smile tugged at her lips. Oh, that's simple, she said softly, though her voice carried a bittersweet edge. It's not just about the body, you know. It's how you look at him like he's the only one in the room. It's how you touch him slowly like you're tracing his soul, not just his skin. Muna tilted her head, absorbing every word as if it were a secret spell. You speak as though you've done it before. Ji-woo's smile faltered and her eyes turned distant. Have she admitted? Once. My first and only love, Hyun-soo. I used those very tricks on him and he was completely mine. Completely head over heels. What happened? Muna whispered. Ji-woo's lips trembled into a sad smile. A rich lady happened. Her family wanted him for her. His family, they were poor, desperate, and she offered them everything they never had. He didn't want her. He didn't even want the wealth. But he had no choice. We were too young to fight the world, too young to marry. Muna felt a pang in her chest, a strange kinship in Ji-woo's pain. And now. Ji-woo exhaled softly, setting the file aside. Now I am here and he is somewhere out there. But one day, her voice lowered, filled with quiet determination. One day we will meet again. Muna nodded slowly, lost in thought. Minho's face came to her mind. His intense gaze, his commanding presence. Could she ever hold a man like that? Could she make him want more? The days were counting down. The wedding was coming. And with it a night she both dreaded and secretly longed for. Minho's footsteps echoed through the abandoned warehouse. His men flanked both sides. The air was heavy with smoke and old steel, the perfect place for backdoor deals and bloodless wars. He didn't come here for blood. Not tonight. He came to stop the vultures circling the lands meant for the poor. Lands they wanted to snatch in the name of development, but truly to line their pockets. 80%, Kong Joon-ki. His rival in business, sneered, leaning against a rusted beam with a cigar between his fingers. I already hold 80% of the property. Minho's eyes narrowed, cold and sharp as the blade hidden beneath his sleeve. You forced it. That's not ownership, that's theft. You get 5%. Nothing more. The words hung heavy in the air. Kong Joon-ki smirked, But beneath that smirk was the same tremor he always felt when standing too close to the man who was always one step ahead. He could never quite catch Min-ho, never trap him, never outsmart him. Min-ho turned, already walking away as if the matter was settled. 5%, he repeated over his shoulder. And Kong Joon-ki, for all his power and bluster, said nothing more. Outside the night was cold. Min-ho's phone buzzed once, then again. He stopped beside his car, glancing at the screen. Muna. He had given her a phone only days ago, let her choose the one she wanted, saved her number himself. Did she miss him or was this something else? He answered, but the line went dead. A second later, a message lit up the screen. When are you coming home? Before his fingers could type, another message arrived. It's not that I miss you. I just wanted to ask if you're okay. For the first time that night, the corner of his lips curved. Not the cold smirk the world knew him for, but something smaller, warmer. He quickly straightened his face before his men could see. But from the warehouse window, Kong Joon-ki's sharp eyes caught it. Smile. Real one. Kong Joon-ki crushed his cigar between his fingers, curiosity sparking in his dark mind. So the great young Min-ho has a weakness after all. He turned to his men. Find out who that is. Whoever makes him smile like that, find her. Back at the mansion, Muna sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her phone as if it might explode. Why had she called him? She wasn't even sure what she wanted to say. The moment he picked up, panic had seized her. And then she had hung up like a fool. Now her messages sat there, sent into silence, and she wished she could take them back. What if he thought she missed him? What if he thought she didn't? She groaned softly, burying her face in her pillow. Somewhere out there he was reading her words. And somewhere in the darkness, an enemy had just decided to make her his target. It was far past midnight when Min-ho finally stepped into the mansion. The weight of the last 4 days pressing into his shoulders. 4 days of silence. 4 days of ignoring her messages, though they burned in his phone like embers. When are you coming home? It's not that I miss you. I just wanted to ask if you're okay. He had read them again and again. His pride told him to stay cold. His heart betrayed him. He didn't stop to rest. His feet carried him to her door as if drawn by a force he couldn't fight. There she was, curled under the soft glow of the bedside lamp. Her lashes resting like feathers against her cheeks. Her chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm, the faintest crease of worry still visible even in sleep. He sat beside her quietly, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. His fingers lingered in the air for a second longer than they should have. She looked so fragile, so painfully innocent in this cruel world he had tied her to. A sigh left him, one he would never allow anyone else to hear. Then, as if her soul had felt his presence, her lashes fluttered. Her lips parted, barely a whisper. Back. Missed you. His heart stopped. She smiled, small, sleepy, and real. And before he could answer, she drifted back to sleep, her breathing evening out once again. He stood there frozen, his chest tightening in a way battles never did. Did she really say that? For the first time in days he wanted to stay. But instead he left as quietly as he came. Morning spilled gold across the room as Ji-woo and the other maids prepared her. The scent of roses clung to her dress, the lace cool against her skin. The Mafia king returned last night, Ji-woo murmured as she adjusted the veil. Muna's fingers stilled. The memory flickered. Him sitting beside her bed, the warmth of his presence, her own voice saying what her heart had whispered in silence. Had she really told him she missed him? Or had that been a dream? Minutes later, she stepped into the hall. And there he was. Min-ho stood at the altar, dark suit tailored to perfection. His gaze fixed solely on her. For a moment, it felt as if the room held its breath. She walked down the aisle, each step measured, her heart racing. When their eyes met, a strange calm settled over her. The vows were exchanged, their fingers intertwined. You may kiss the bride. And then his hand rose, cupping her face as his lips found hers. Started soft, then deepened. Muna gasped, instinctively pulling back, but his hand held her in place, gentle yet unyielding. The world blurred. The murmurs of the crowd faded. Her heart thudded against her ribs as her knees nearly gave way, but his arm was already at her waist, steadying her. When he finally pulled back, the room was silent, just for a breath before the applause came. "Did you see that?" Someone whispered. "She's so lucky." Another sighed. To be continued. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss part 2. It's coming with even more drama, deeper romance, and some twists you won't see coming. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think will happen next. Will Moona survive in Minho's dangerous world? Will their marriage become real love or remain a transaction? And what does Kang Joon-ki have planned? All that and more in the next episode. See you soon.